Everyone, I'm Grant and welcome back to the channel. So this is going to be an interesting video, and I know the title is scary, even though at the moment I don't even know what the title is going to be yet. But unbeknownst to even me at the time, I've already taken my final drive in my right-hand drive TJ Wrangler. And part of that is because of this last clip at the end of my last video. After I published that video, I started taking apart my BEW TDI. I actually thought I had just had a head gasket failure because I had a lot of oil in my cooling system, but I had no coolant in my oil pan. So I was thinking, head gasket, this can be a quick fix. Kind of annoying. And I was even looking at doing an ARP head stud upgrade to get better clamping pressure because I am running an aftermarket turbo producing more boost. However, when I started taking everything apart and I took the turbo off, I have oil coming out of the exhaust port for cylinder number 4, which is not a good thing, which does explain a couple of things that I had been noticing over the last couple of months I've been driving this. Basically, my coolant temperatures were getting hotter and hotter. And off camera, and I've mentioned this in some videos, I have redone the cooling system on the swap so many times. And now I'm thinking something in the cylinder head was starting to fail. Now, I've taken this apart. I can't see anything visually, but neither have I taken this to a machine shop to get the head inspected either. Because once I realized how catastrophic the failure could be, I had to kind of step back and decide what my next plan was. And what I'm going to say now is something I haven't really said on camera, but those who I talked to closely have known for a while. When I finally got this running in its current iteration in November of 2023, it was the first time where my entire build was good enough that I could consistently drive it on the road. And what that pointed out to me is I am not comfortable driving a right-hand drive. And there are several reasons for it. I live in the United States. Our road system is set up for left-hand drive vehicles. And yes, I know there are probably thousands, if not millions of people that drive right-hand drives in the United States, be it if you're a postal worker or anyone in the car scene that likes to import foreign-made cars. However, for me personally, I could never get comfortable driving the right-hand drive. So about 2 years ago, I had started planning on how could I fix this. Oh, and one other thing on the right-hand drive that's always been annoying. Everything is mirrored for the right-hand drive. Things that should be on what's normally the driver's side are on my passenger side and vice versa. Great example. In the beginning of 2023, I bought a wrecked 2004 TJ Rubicon. I actually have the Rubicon transfer case installed on this Wrangler currently, but I also wanted to install the Dana 44 locking factory Rubicon axles on my TJ Wrangler. However, this is a right-hand drive, which means the track bar mounts and the steering components are all mirrored. But if I had a left-hand drive TJ, it would just bolt right in. And that had kind of been the idea that kind of started getting into my head early 2024 once I started putting a lot of seat time on this build. And I've got about 3,000 miles on it at this point. But once the engine let go, I realized I had a decision to make. I could either replace this engine and finish out the build, or I could accelerate a whole lot of plans and just go, you know what? I'm done with this and we're going to use it all for parts. And I'm pretty sure y'all know where this is going, so let me go ahead and show you what I have gotten. And it is right here. And let me make sure I've kind of pulled that into camera pretty well. Let's zoom out. This is my 2005 left-hand drive, Impact Orange, TJ Wrangler that I bought in the summer of 2024. This has a 2.4 liter double overhead cam 4-cylinder engine with the NSG 370 6-speed manual transmission. And this is a base model. This has nothing. No ABS, no AC, no cruise control, nothing. This is a bare bones Wrangler. However, it was garage kept, so there's also no rust on it either, which is really nice. And I have to say, I think getting the base model, especially if you're going to plan to do an engine swap, makes a whole lot of sense because there's just less that you have to take out of it. Now, the other thing I will admit, it is not keeping this lift kit or wheels and tires. They are horrible for this specific TJ Wrangler because this lift kit was designed for a 4-liter inline 6 with a hard top. I have a 4-cylinder engine with a soft top. This is the worst riding TJ I have ever been in my life. But the plan now is to move everything from my right-hand drive 2006 TJ Wrangler into this left-hand drive 2005 TJ Wrangler, along with all the Rubicon parts from a 2004 wrecked TJ Wrangler Rubicon. And that's part of the reason why I haven't posted in so many months, because trying to figure out the order of operations to do all that has been really tricky. The last thing we need to talk about is the engine. Now, I'm currently running a 1.9 liter BEW TDI that came out of it was either 2004 or 2005 Volkswagen New Beetle. And I finally have it working well with my AW4 4-speed automatic out of an XJ Cherokee with a custom tune that lowered the factory idle from 913-ish RPM to about 700 RPM. However, that created some other unique complications, nothing to do with the tune or the tuner, just it's never quite worked correctly. Let's put it that way. But it worked well enough to drive on the road, and I was quite happy with it. Part of that reason is the minimum cruising RPM for the BEW TDI is about 2200 RPM, and I can validate that. Once I adjusted all the tuning with the CompuShift transmission controller on the AW4 so that it kept the RPM above 2200 RPM, the right-hand drive drove fantastic. However, there are better diesel engines out there for that AW4 automatic. And that was the other vehicle that kind of popped up out of nowhere for me also in 2024. In 2024, I also bought a 2014 Volkswagen Jetta TDI with the common rail engine, specifically the CJAA engine. And that is now also going to be the engine that I go to instead of fixing or replacing my BEW TDI. And I'm doing it basically for 3 reasons. Number one, the factory idle is 800 RPM and it has 2 counterbalance shafts going alongside the cylinders in the engine block. So it's a perfectly smooth and balanced engine. The second reason is it is a cross-flow head design, and instead of being 2 valves per cylinder, it is 4 valves per cylinder. What you get from going to a cross-flow head is better cylinder temperatures, more boost, it's more efficient, it's smoother, it's just better all across the board. And the third reason is it's a common rail setup. Now, unfortunately, the CJAA does have the CP4 pump, which is a ticking time bomb. I have already ordered and I finally have the kit to replace the CP4 pump with a CP3 pump. Now, I still need to get a tune and do a whole bunch of other stuff for it, but I have the parts, and that's one of the other reasons why I haven't posted in so long. But you combine all those things, the minimum RPM speed required to cruise with the CJAA is actually about 200 RPM lower than the BEW TDI. So instead of being about 2200 RPM, it's about 2000 RPM. And that sounds minute, but the one thing I have learned doing this build and project since 2018 with a diesel engine and automatic transmission, those little 200 RPM variances make a massive difference. And this entire time I've been trying to get the BEW TDI to work with my AW4. If I could just have 200 RPM, everything would work better. Now, I needed better gearing in my axles. I never corrected the gearing in the right-hand drive, and I knew that. And it was why I was excited to buy the wrecked Rubicon, because I'd be going from 373 gears to 410s. And those 410s would make a huge difference. But you go to the 410 gears along with the CJAA engine, where the minimum RPM speed for cruising is about 200 RPM lower. All of a sudden, I can use overdrive better in the AW4. All of a sudden, I can use the lockup torque converter in more gears to get better fuel economy and to put more power to the tires. And it's just all of these things combined, it just makes for a better setup. So on top of combining a 2004, 2005, and 2006 TJ Wrangler, I'm also now having to pull the engine wiring harness, throttle pedal, and whatever other parts I need out of a 2014 Volkswagen Jetta, and somehow I have to make all of this work together. And that's part of the reason why I have not posted in months. I have been going through and figuring out what parts do I need, what's the order of operations, because that is also important. I have a shop. It's not a big shop. I do all of this in a 20 by 24 foot shop. I can only have 2 vehicles in here at a time. I have no way of taking apart 4 vehicles at once. So that's part of what I have been working on. But that is going to be the plan moving forward. Basically, the way my right-hand drive TJ Wrangler looks today, that's how I want this left-hand drive TJ Wrangler to look. So it's getting the fuel tank that has a Jeep Liberty lift pump from a diesel Jeep Liberty. It's going to get the hardtop, my seats, the suspension, the body lift. A lot of parts are going to be reused off of my right-hand drive. And quite frankly, I think I'm going to keep most of the body panels because they're both impact orange, so I have a ton of spare parts as well. But anyway, wanted to give an update. I'm finally to the point where I kind of know the order of operations of what I'm going to have to do to get this build done. I don't really have a timeline on how long it's going to take. I just know whatever I plan on it taking, it's going to take longer than I expect. But wanted to give the update. I'm still here. I'm still doing the build. My end goal is to have this Wrangler look identical to my other Wrangler, with the only difference being I'm now getting into the driver's seat on the left side versus the right side. So what I'm going to say now is whenever this video gets posted, I'm going to let it go probably a week or so. Leave all your questions and comments down below. Instead of me responding to the questions and comments, I'm going to let those accumulate for about a week, and then I'm going to do a second video answering all of your questions and comments in detail instead of trying to type it out online. But anyway, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you sometime soon. Goodbye.